welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. We are currently in between rainstorms right now, so we're going to start out in the perennial garden and make our way to the greenhouse. So if it starts raining, we'll be under the cover there. But I've got a lot to show you. There's a lot of really cool updates, especially over here. The most exciting update that I feel like I have for this space is the fact that we are getting some little maypops on our maypop vine finally. Many of you know, but if you are new to the channel, I put these maypop vines in here this year, and these are the flowers. Aren't they gorgeous? They are so pretty, and they smell kind of like a rose. And when they are pollinated, this little bulbous part right there in between the reproductive parts of the plant, that begins to swell and it turns into these fruits. Now, this is small and immature, but I do have some over here, and these are much smaller. This one was getting a little bit eaten up by caterpillars, but there's one over here that is bigger, and this is close to full size, but it's not ripe. The maypops, or passion fruits, are ripe when they kind of start to wilt and get wrinkly, and that's when they've got the best flavor. It's a little bit strange to have something that tastes so tropical growing natively here up this far north in the United States. Now, we're not super far north by any means, but maypops can grow, I believe, up through zone 5, which is pretty cold. Now, I don't mean that they are frost tolerant, but they do come back by the roots in those zones. So we did have some loofah, and I still do have loofah. You can see one right here. But I guess we did have some sunflower stalks that the loofah were growing on over here. We had some wind come through and knock over the sunflowers, and so some of our loofah are kind of knocked down as well, but they're fine. They're still growing, and actually we've got some that are starting to change color. Now, a lot of people like to harvest their loofah when they're dry and crispy. I actually prefer not to. I feel like they're easier to process when you can process them green, and the loofah sponges themselves stay whiter without you having to do anything to them. So I'm going to grab my shears and I'm going to show you how I do that. So we've got our loofah, and if you have a serrated knife, like a bread knife, it works really well to cut the ends off. I'm going to use what I've got right here. Okay. See that in there? And then what I like to do is just give it a good crunch. You can see the outside starts to come away from the flesh. It's real easy to peel. Like that. So we're peeled, but there's still quite a few seeds in there. These seeds are black, and so they are mature, and we could save these. I've got a lot of loofah seeds, so I don't necessarily feel like I need to. One loofah could plant, I don't know, dozens and dozens of gardens. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if you can tell what's going on here, but I'm rinsing and squeezing, and I've got seeds coming out the bottom. See up there? There you go. Can you see down in there? Basically, all the seeds are out, and if I have missed some, it's really not a catastrophe. But see? It's done, and it's beautiful, and it'll stay bright white just like this. What do you think of that? Not a fan? So yes, we've got plenty of loofah over here from one plant where we will keep ourselves in loofah for a very long time. I actually just replaced the loofah that I use to wash my dishes at my kitchen sink. And I don't use loofah for everything. I do need like a good scrub pad for some things, but for most things the loofah works really well. And I think I had that one little like maybe 1.5-inch section of a loofah for about a month before it needs replacing. So, you know, an 18-inch long loofah can last a real long time. I haven't done a whole lot with this garden. The past few garden tours, I've kind of just left it to go wild, and some of these tomatoes that I thought were dead do have a second wind. Now, our first estimated frost is in less than a month, so I don't anticipate getting a lot of harvest out of here, but we could get some green tomatoes. I've actually got a lot of green tomatoes over here. I keep talking about making the green tomato salsa, and we will at some point. I just need to get the gumption to do it. These tomatoes have dealt with a fair amount of sickness this year, but they still power through. Isn't that crazy? And here's the loofah situation from this side. I recently made a harvest off of our Carlos muscadine grapes. I have 2 grapevines here. One right here. You can see the base of the vine there, and then there's one on this side. I didn't harvest all of them because they weren't all ripe at the same time. They start out like really hard and green, kind of turn yellowy, and then they will ripen to this beautiful bronze color. They do have a thicker skin on them, which honestly, I don't mind at all. I feel like it helps give them a measure of bug and bird resistance, which is really important here. They taste like a white grape, but they have this very green, almost dry aftertaste. It's hard to describe. They have a couple seeds on the inside, but they're lovely. I juiced the grapes that we harvested last week, and I need to make some jelly with those soon. But whatever's left out here, we are going to just use for grazing, fresh eating. There's not a whole lot going on back here, except for I do have 3 roselle plants in this bed, which still have yet to flower. I am told that they are day length sensitive, but the clock is ticking on our freeze, so I don't know. And this is the state of the Jerusalem artichokes right now. They have seen better days. I haven't seen any flowers all year. I don't know if this is disease or just normal progression, but that's what they look like at this point. And over down in here, I have a decent sized pumpkin that we're gonna harvest. Adorable little thing. All the pumpkins that are growing on our land this year were volunteers from pumpkins that we grew last year, and birds spread the seed. The pumpkins actually grew quite a ways from this garden, and I didn't put any pumpkins over here by this garden, so the birds have carried some seeds quite a distance. I have this pumpkin vine growing in the front yard too, with 1 pumpkin on it. I talked about this in a recent vlog, but what we have here are 2 key lime bushes, and I wasn't sure we were going to get fruit this year, but it does appear that we will. We have a ton of blooms. Many of them are just little tiny buds at this point, but then here we have an open flower down here, and the bees have been loving them. They're not out right now because of the rain. But we do have some very immature little key limes down here. Oh, there's a friend taking refuge under that leaf. We'll just leave him right there. But yeah, I'm very excited to see this. This will need me to roll it into my shed coming up here soon. And so we will be getting fruit, but it'll be much later and harvested from indoors. This here is a volunteer cherry tomato that I let grow on the side porch. I am not sad that I did it. Quite a few fruits inevitably have fallen, and this could be something that we see every single year. We have been coming through periodically and collecting fresh fruit just outside the door. Here's the status of the kids' garden. Shaika, I think, is the only one that really planted a second succession this year. And he has some of these miniature white cucumbers, which I'm noticing we do have some male flowers setting on this plant over here. All the rain we're getting this week should help these guys take off. And so hopefully our frost holds off long enough for him to get somewhat of a harvest. Around October 19th is our first estimated frost date of the year. Now, I haven't mowed in forever. I haven't really felt like it, but here we have our lane, which was growing quite a few cowpeas. You can see the remnants here, but really they're basically done. I think our cowpeas were basically done at this same time last year, and I had assumed that it was an irrigation problem that made them dry up so fast, but no, I think it's just them timing out. They're done, which is a little sad for our friend down here. Farrell loves his beans. There are a few like green ones left on here, but they're starting to dry up for sure. So we've got a few last treats. You want another one? Something that I have discovered recently though, is that thankfully he does have an alternative snack that he does like. And this first archway in the greenhouse, this Malabar spinach that volunteered here this year, it's now the star of the show. It's really loved the heat that we've gotten. Look at it from this side. It's just thriving. I think there's actually 2 plants over here, and you can see the bumblebees. They love the flowers as well. All manner of insect really loves these little flowers. But if we pop off a leaf, thankfully, Farrell really likes those too. You can't eat me. Now, one more, okay? He is also a fan of tomatoes. Let's get him one that doesn't have a bug bite in it. There we go. And I've never tried him with cucamelons. That is a huge one. Looky there. What do you think of this? You gotta chew it, okay? Is that good? Oops, uh-oh. My fault. So yeah, fear not, even though his beans are basically done, Farrell has plenty of snacks. Before we head into the greenhouse, I do want to update you on what's going on over here. I did have some more volunteer pumpkins in this goat pen. You can kind of see them back there. There's some plants that are still living. I don't know if there's any pumpkins out there, but I've been looking at this for a couple days, and I left this over here just so we could take a look at it. Look at all the squash bugs all over this pumpkin. I feel like they're hanging on to the last little bit that they have. Oh, gross. Yeah, this pumpkin is soft. It didn't get enough time before the plant died. Oh good, you've got some chicken friends. They'll help you with this. Aw, there we go. You better go get some before he eats it all. Now, back in here, I do have a collection of pumpkins, small collection of pumpkins that we did pull from that back pen. Not bad for something I did not plant. I have already preserved at least one pumpkin. I've got another one sitting inside on my counter, so we've had a good harvest. Essentially what's going on in the greenhouse is this middle row here has everything that I'm kind of trying to take over from the spring and summer garden as far as I can into the fall time. And then along the outside edge, these are my brassicas. So for the most part, I'm growing a Green Magic hybrid broccoli. I have tried to grow several different types of broccoli over the years, and I've had marginal amounts of success, but I've had the most success with broccoli varieties that were bred to withstand the heat, which has been very important. Sometimes our summers come on very early and sometimes they stay late. And just this past week, the highs were in the mid to high 90s. And that's a lot for a cool loving plant. These guys look good so far. I don't really see any signs of bolting. Funny, that's beans. That looks like dill right there. That's chamomile. Look at the volunteers. That's fun. I will leave those. But yeah, right here, this is a purple of Sicily cauliflower. It looks a little tall, but we'll see if that's trying to flower or not. And down here are cabbages, and these guys look good. They don't look like they're lengthening out at all or trying to flower. They do look a little bit like they're kind of stunted, but some plants handle transplant a little bit better than others. So a lot of the times when you put a transplant out into the garden, it'll look like they're not growing for a few weeks and then all of a sudden they'll shoot up. That's quite normal. What they're doing is working on growing that root system underneath the ground before they then have the energy to really do a lot of upward growth. Over underneath the tomatoes over here, I planted some rainbow carrot seed tape. And as you can see, they're doing quite well. I was having an issue early on with what I think was either roly-polies or caterpillars eating off some of the smaller carrot seedlings. So there's like a little bit of a hole right here. But a lot of the carrots are doing well. I'm very excited for what's gonna happen over here. So far, so good. And as you can see, the tomatoes that are here are still having a very good time. Lots of green fruits here and really a minimal amount of disease. You see some here, but a lot of the plant is doing quite well. Wow, the cucamelons have made it all the way over here. Look at that. That's really fun. Now this area over here is the reason I brought my harvest basket. This is my jalapeno bed. We are growing mostly Megatron jalapenos, which are these big jalapenos over here. And I do have one that's just a regular jalapeno plant, but I've recently cut these way back because they got so big and the fruits were so heavy that they were just snapping off some of the branches. Well, funny thing is, they grew new branches and the same thing is kind of starting to happen. These fruits are just so large that it just bends the plants right over and then threatens to snap them. Look at that. There's a lot on here. There we go. That's a pretty good harvest. There's actually still quite a few peppers on here that are a little bit smaller, and since we've definitely got time before our first frost, especially here in the greenhouse, I'm just gonna leave them, let them get a little bit bigger, and we'll get another harvest later. Now down here I do have another type of hot pepper growing. This is a hybrid between a golden jalapeno and a habanero. The seed was sent to me by a viewer and we've called it the tater pepper, and we've been harvesting them this color. It's like, you know, banana pepper color. They are definitely hotter than a banana pepper. As you can see here, they ripen from this color to an orange and then finally a red. A lot of peppers will do this, and with a lot of peppers you want to wait until they're at this stage before you harvest the seed, because that's how you know it's at its most mature. This plant is looking a little bit sickly, so I don't know how far into the season or into the next season it's really gonna go. I'm gonna harvest a few, but I am gonna leave a few of these on to get red so we can harvest the seed. It does not take a lot of them to really make the hot sauce have not just more heat, but a well-rounded, kind of fruity, tropical, really nice flavor. There's a brightness to it that's really nice. The jalapeno adds a lot of greenness. These peppers add a lot of depth of flavor and with that extra kick of spice. This side of the greenhouse just has more brassicas. These guys have a little bit of bug damage on this side. I had stuck these plants in a couple weeks earlier than the others, and I have recently come through here and sprayed some BT, because as you can see, the caterpillars were having a grand old time with these plants, but you can see we've got some new growth coming out of the center of this plant, and this is relatively unaffected. That kind of actually looks like bird damage right there, but these guys will bounce back okay. I had spent quite a few days inside where I didn't really come out to the garden at all, and that's when the caterpillars really took over, so I'm glad that we got a hold of them. Some of these plants are actually getting quite large, which is very exciting. Down in the middle here, I am growing some radishes. These particular ones are a black Spanish radish. Oh, funny too, I have some volunteer ground cherries in here. There's one there, and then there's a couple over there. We recently did just do a lot of weeding in the garden. It needs to probably happen again relatively soon, but I'll leave something like this because you can see we've got some fruit coming on and some little flowers, so that's a fun bonus. The little holes that are in these leaves are not from caterpillars. This looks like flea beetles. They do really like these types of plants, but they don't seem to really affect their growth or productivity too bad, so I tend to just leave them alone. Oh, there's a dead worm down there. Yeah, they'll be okay. I need to double check and make sure that this bed, the irrigation is working okay. You can see the difference in size between the broccoli that are here and the broccoli that are over there. Very interesting difference. I had planted radishes in between these broccoli as well, but they got eaten up by something, so we don't have them there. But we've got more here. I believe these are a red globe radish amongst more broccoli. And then down here, I know that these are watermelon radishes in between. Now, I do see a bug. We've got a lot of cucumber beetles in the greenhouse this year. Now that's not been super ideal, but it hasn't been catastrophic, thankfully. I do have some armpit melons over on this trellis, and they don't look super great. We've got some flowering, but these plants were just ravaged by bugs so early on in their development that they just essentially are growing with disease. And so I don't think we're actually gonna get fruit off of these, which is kind of sad. I do have some extra brassicas down here that they've been quite shaded, so I probably need to slowly adjust them into the sunlight. But these guys can go over where those melons are. I think we'll actually go to this side of the trellis to look at the tromboncino and how well they are growing. These are some of the largest tromboncino leaves that I feel like I have ever seen. Look at that. I've grown tromboncino for a few years, and I don't know that I have ever seen them have leaves this large. It's kind of incredible. I do have some cabbages kind of nestled in between here. I've been trying to give them access to light by kind of pruning these back and training them up towards the trellis. We'll see if they do okay. We have some very, very immature tromboncino squash. They haven't even opened the flowers yet. They're still quite a ways from that. The male flowers are more developed, which I would expect. Some plants have flowers with everything in the one flower that plant needs to create the fruit, like tomatoes. This flower over here has everything in it that is needed to create a tomato. It just needs a bumblebee to come along and buzz the pollen down to the other reproductive parts of the plant, and then we get a tomato. Something like squash is a little bit different. They need a male flower and a female flower and a pollinator to facilitate that transfer of genetic material. But it's part of the intelligence of the plant to put out the male flowers first so that they're there and ready when the female flowers open up. But as you can see, the tromboncino is going all the way to the top. It's meeting the tomatoes from the other side, which, look at all of them. So many tomatoes very high up. And then this is what the tromboncino looks like from the inside of the trellis. There's only two plants. There's one there and one there. And they've grown not only a main stem, but offshoots as well. And they're gonna fill this trellis right up. And then soon we'll have some gorgeous fruits hanging down. And it's gonna be really magical. I have harvested everything from our bonfire peach trees. So they are done for the season. They did very well. We did lose a couple branches due to the weight of the peaches, but that's okay. It is definitely spider season. Can you see what we've got going on here? And archways in spider season make things a little bit dangerous. Down here I've got my lima beans that have been growing in here for quite a while. We have already made a couple of harvests out of this bed, but it looks like we're basically time for another one. You can see these dry pods here. This is what we'll harvest. I'm not gonna do that today, but I'll do that soon. Also got some green pods on and some more flowers. And they will just keep cranking them out. Lima beans are not frost tolerant, but they are tolerant of cooler temperatures. They do thrive pretty well when things get close to freezing or within 40 degrees. They do okay. So the plan is just to leave them here and see how long we can take them into winter. This here is not a heated greenhouse, so the temperature inside of it very much depends on the outside conditions. So in October, we will have some nights that are either at or very close to freezing. And the greenhouse can hold about 10 degrees above the outside temperature if we have nice sunny days and I've got the greenhouse closed up. And so it really just depends. If we've got overcast days like we have today, the greenhouse really can only maintain a couple degrees above freezing, and that's only due to the thermal mass of what's living in here. So we get somewhat of a season extension, but there's definitely a point where things are gonna freeze in here for sure, and that's okay. Some of our favorite things to grow are the cool loving plants, and so that's why we have this greenhouse, to help these guys get through the cooler weather better. Now some of you may have noticed that we have some live traps here in the greenhouse. My kids actually put these in here. I accidentally just kicked that one closed. But we noticed we had some kind of critter coming up onto this table and opening up these birdhouse gourds from last year and eating the seeds out of them. Can you see that down in there? Some kind of critter did that, and we don't know what. My guess is it's some kind of possum, maybe a raccoon, but we've seen possums out here before. This here is my herb green stalk. I have still done nothing with it, and you know what? At this point, I'm not mad about it. You wanna know why? Recently, I noticed that we have quite sizable wasp nests that have been built in here throughout the season. And this is one of the issues that I have with green stalks. It's that at least in my area, they seem to be great little habitats for wasps. So I'm not really messing with that. I've been watering it as much as I am brave enough to water it now that I know those are there. But yeah, we've been trying to mull over what exactly to do about the bug situation in there. Speaking of bugs, you can probably see that these carrots that I had in this little grow bag are pretty well stripped of their leaves. Actually, the butterfly caterpillars that were in here have moved on. I don't know if they've pupated somewhere or what, but the carrots are bouncing back pretty well. We've got some new growth coming out of them, so it'll be interesting to see how these guys produce. I didn't intentionally grow those particular carrots. I did sow this bed, this little grow bag full of carrots, and then I harvested them, and then I just sort of left the grow bag as is and kept watering it to keep the soil alive. And apparently some of the seeds that were in there that didn't germinate before germinated. So this is a bonus crop, so I'm just kind of leaving it to see what happens. These here are the caterpillars that we've been noticing on the carrots. One of our members told me that this is a swallowtail butterfly, and I like those, so we've been leaving them. This here is a carrot that volunteered in my stevia, which is big again and could probably use a harvest again. That stevia has produced and produced and produced all year. It's been excellent. It does look like it might want to flower, and maybe I'll let it. I've got a lot of stevia harvested. So anyways, that's what I've got for you for the garden today. I did just plant some more starts to go in some of those grow bags that I have out on the lane. I'm actually going to move them in here and try to grow some different root vegetables and leafy greens and things in here in the greenhouse over the winter time. It will be interesting to see how long we can hold off on the frost here in the greenhouse, but we still have about a month before we have to think about that. I'm very excited that the fall and winter season is upon us. It's my favorite garden to grow. If you have not tried to grow a fall and winter garden, I highly encourage you to do so. It is easier when you live in a more mild area like where we live, and if you've got access to a way to cover your plants. It does not have to be a greenhouse. I've actually seen where some people will grow like leafy greens underneath like Rubbermaid totes. That's really awesome. Actually, Roots and Refuge did a video on growing greens inside a Rubbermaid tote. It's from a few years ago, but it's still good. I'll link that down below. You may not have these. No, that's a hard no. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, and you're welcome.